Welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James. Guys, it is a day where we're going to talk a little bit about Abdallah Sima and his injury history, which we've kind of discovered on the podcast last night. We're going to put Rangers off spending the money, given our past history with signing players that are persistently injured and obviously the risks that brings. We're also going to look at what Philippe Clermont has been saying as regards some of our young players and giving them their opportunity and restructuring the youth and the way that the youth work. Some interesting notes there from Big Phil. News, just a few bits of other news around Scotland today. Nick Walsh has been appointed as the referee for the cup final. Nick Walsh, who is, well, let's face it, a little bit, I don't know, a little bit green and grey, possibly, maybe, perhaps. I don't know. Obviously, that comes on the top of the day when Scottish refereeing decided to commit a collective suicide by appointing Willie Collum as its director of refereeing for next season. Yes, the inevitable happened last night as well. That lot from across the city. Sorry, Celtic. I don't want to get complaints. Won 5-0. That's right, 5-0 away at Killie, which is a pretty incredible result to seal their 54th league title, making it even more prevalent that Rangers get this summer rebuild right. We cannot allow them to draw level with us in terms of league titles. And very, very important that we win the Scottish Cup on the 25th. So that they don't come close to overtaking us in number of trophies won. Certainly don't want that to happen now, do we? So that's a little bits and pieces from around Scotland tonight. It's not a really great night, is it really? Last night wasn't a great night for Rangers. Serial bottle job, serial losers have lost us the league, and it is now official that they have done that. Brings it home, doesn't it? Anyway, on with the video, on with the news. Okay, so we're going to talk about the youth football side of it, some interesting bits of information, including, do we already have James Tavernier's replacement at the club? Could he be a left field surprise in the same way that Dujon Sterling has been a left field surprise in midfield for the club? We'll get to that shortly, so please obviously hang on for that. Now, there is no doubt that Abdallah Sima has been one of the best players this season for Rangers. He has been a star. He has been fantastic in front of goal. He's played on the left side, the right side. He's played through the middle at times and has been a fantastic talent. And look, I'm a massive, massive fan of Abdallah Sima's, big, big fan of old Abdallah Sima. 16 goals this season, 2 assists, an excellent return for the player. Obviously, we've missed him through injury yet again for the second period. He came back from the AFCON injured and missed a good number of games. He did then return, but has now been injured again and has missed again some very important games for us. And it's no doubt that we've really missed Sima, and he could have had a huge difference in some of those games that he didn't play in, particularly obviously the Old Firm last Saturday. Now, if we were going to secure Abdallah Sima from Brighton, it would cost a substantial amount of cash. Now, I know that he has not got long left on his contract. However, we're dealing with English clubs, and English clubs charge what is called the English premium, the English tax, the EPL tax. And we know down south that players cost an astronomical amount of money. They just seem to, no matter who they are, have their prices bumped. I mean, you've only got to look at the English Championship, where players are being transferred between Championship clubs for 10 to 12 million pounds, where players from the Championship are going up to the Premier League for somewhere in the region of 20 to 25 million pounds. So a substantial amount of cash is being spent on Premier League players. Now, rumours have circulated that Abdallah Sima would be available from anywhere between 6 to 10 million pounds, which would be a substantial outlay at this moment in time. Now, if you're an English Premier League club, 6 to 10 million pounds would be pocket change, would not be a great deal of money at all, especially if you are one of the fortunate top 6 who can spend up to 80 to 83% of your revenue, and you're generating multi-million revenues through your European football, your merchandise sales, your TV deals, etc., etc. But when you are playing in Scotland and you have a crap TV deal, thanks to the SFA and Neil Doncaster being about as much use as a chocolate teapot, and you obviously, we have not got the funds we used to have. We have not got some oil baron backing us, or some country nation posing as a shell company spending a great deal of money on us. We have to obviously be careful with the amount of money we are spending. So spending 6, 7, 8 million pounds on Abdallah Sima would represent a substantial outlay of cash for Rangers. Now, it would also be, I think, an amount of wages as well. I think, Sima probably could be secured for under, in terms of his wages, what he would be paid perhaps in England, Sima does seem to love Rangers. He loves being at the club. He loves playing for the club. You can see that when he's out on the park. You can see that with how he reacts with the fans when he scores goals, how he is generally. So all positive there. Now, Sima is clearly someone who is a very talented player. Now, I did a bit of backup research after not really knowing the answer to a question and kind of bluffing my way through it last night. Sorry about that. About his injury history. This is Abdallah Sima's injury history. Now, please bear in mind that Rangers have in the past suffered from signing players who have been injured quite a lot, trying to bring them to Rangers and thinking we can keep them fit, we can get them fit, we can use them. Kamar Roof, Ryan Jack, spring to mind immediately. Kieran Dow, another one. And we end up then with hundreds of thousands of pounds per week of wages sat in the stands, which is not what we need. Clement has been clear that the whole injury side of things, the medical side of things, the physio side of things needs to be hugely overhauled and really looked at this summer to ensure that we have excellent player availability next season. Certainly, if you're outlaying £6, £7, £8 million on a player like Abdallah Sima, you'd want him available for 95% minimum of your matches. Now, this is his injury history and also the number of games that he has missed in that time. Now, it's broken down, first of all, to 3 seasons and then broken down individually to injuries that Abdallah Sima has sustained. And it's a bit of a shock. I actually got a bit of a shock looking at this information about Abdallah. So between 2020 and 2021, he missed 28 days of the season, 1 injury, and he missed 8 games in total. Between 21 and 22, Abdallah Sima missed 181 days, 4 injuries he picked up, 43 games missed in total in that period. And then obviously this season, 23-24, 89 days of the season he's missed, had 2 injuries, and he's missed 18 Rangers games this season. So all in all, through his career, he's missed some 69 games and sustained 7 injuries. Now, how do those injuries break down? Very sort of similar injuries, leg injuries, muscle injuries, all injuries that are down to perhaps a weakness in those muscles, a strength and conditioning issue, a general fitness issue, not down to a physical contact, a hammer thrower type tackle injury that you can sustain. So going back to 2020-21, he suffered a groin injury, was out for 28 days. That's when he was with Slavia Prague. Missed 8 games in that time. He had a fitness issue in 21-22 with Slavia Prague. Then he suffered from 3 different injuries during his loan spell at Stoke: a groin injury, a back injury, and an ankle injury. That's where he missed those massive 43 games over that period, a lot of days out. And then obviously with Rangers, he has been out for 65 days and 24 days respectively, with 2 hamstring injuries back to back, same injury. Now, this is a concern. This is a worry. For me, I'm a huge fan of Abdallah Sima. I really like Abdallah Sima. You know that. You've heard me sing his praises. You've heard me saying he's one of my favorite players. Don't fall in love with a lone player. Blah blah blah, etc. etc. But this injury history here does really call into question, his signing. It really does concern me. Especially if you could then use that 7 to 8 million to go out and perhaps secure Oscar Cortez and say Watson or Armstrong from Kilmarnock, who are both very talented Scottish players who I think could come in and do a job. You could probably get at least 2 of those players for the same amount of cash as you would sell on Abdallah Sima, both of whom have slightly better injury records than Abdallah. Look, nothing against Abdallah. If we get him, I will fully back him. But that injury history is a concern. And, given the fact that we do as a club need to move away from signing these injury-prone players, that past injury history is a concern. Now, I accept fully that not all footballers stay fully fit all season, and all footballers get injuries. That is a fact of modern football due to the stresses and strains on the player. And I admit that Clement seems to have an understanding of how to get players fit, of what he wants in terms of fitness, etc., etc. And he may be one that can turn Clement round, but turn Sima round. But then are we guilty again of going into this cycle of let's buy a player, we can sort him out, we can get him fit, we can make him spot on, etc., etc. Guys, I'd love to know your feelings, but doing that little bit of research into his injury history does very much concern me when it comes to Abdallah Sima. Okay, let's move it along a little bit. Let's talk a bit of Phil Clement and what he's been saying about the youth team. Now, he's spoken today about the fact that, that he's not afraid, he says, to use young players. This is the second time he said it. And certainly, certainly against Dundee the other night, McCausland, Fraser, McKinnon, King, and obviously Yefeko on the bench, all for me, showed that youth can play a part. And I've been a huge advocate of putting young players into this squad. I know you've heard on my videos all year about me backing Bailey Rice to come through, of wanting to see Zach Lovelace and so on and so forth. And obviously, Zach is out injured, and so is Bailey at the moment. Yet another couple of victims of our injury curse. But Phil has been talking about the fact that we need to restructure the youth. We need to restructure the link between the young players and training with the first team squad, getting them involved with first team football and making sure they're ready for first team football. And I think that is the big thing, that step up from playing under 18s to B team to first team. That jump is big. It is huge. And, certainly when we're looking to develop these players to, maybe sell on for a big profit in the future using the trading model, or to make these players competitive for European games, for Celtic games, we do need to have that link, that clear way of development, that pathway from youth to first team. And, there's no doubt in my mind, we have some very fine young players in our squad, up and coming. Players I've mentioned previously are Shaka Thompson, Archie Stevens, Paul Nisio, Bailey Rice, Leighton Grant, Leon King, John Lee Yefeko, Robbie Fraser, Cole McKinnon. The list is long, and I'd love to see some of these kids break through and actually have a career and a future in the first team. Now, one player who has played a part this season, playing in Europe, playing the odd game and making a substitute appearance, is Cole McKinnon. Cole McKinnon, obviously Youth Player of the Year as well. A very highly thought of prospect, a very highly thought of player is Cole. And could Cole McKinnon be a surprise replacement for Tavernier? Now, he came on at right back in the game against Dundee the other night. And I'm not just saying that because he came on as a right back and that's just me trying to be a bit weird. And is he the reverse Dujon Sterling, moves from playing 6 and 8 to playing in the back 4? Just saying that because I want to be trying to be a bit reverse Philippe Clement. I'm just telling you what Philippe Clement has been saying. And this is what Big Phil has been saying. He says, Cole trained several times as a right fullback. It's not something new for him, but I know his best position is in midfield, adds Clement. Cover may be required on the right, with Dujon Sterling adapting excellently to his move to a more advanced role on the wing. So couple of things to pick out of that comment there. Comment number one to pick out is the fact that, that maybe that Cole McKinnon can play right back and could be a talented right back. His distribution is clearly good. He is a midfielder. He knows how to get forward and attack because he has played in that 8 role. He has got a range of tackling skills. He has played in the 6 role. So could he be a player that could be converted into a right back? Could he be the reverse of Dujon Sterling? The second part of that comment is that Clement kind of worryingly sees Dujon being more of a winger than being a central defensive midfielder. I would argue that Dujon's best position is actually central defensive midfield, and would disagree with the manager on that one. Big Phil goes on to say, we need sometimes to plan in advance to find solutions, and McKinnon needs to do that in training. For example, Ross McCausland last season trained 5 times with the first team. And this is the big thing, the worry is that we've got to try and get these players to train more often with the first team, get used to playing with these first team players, developing themselves, playing alongside, whoever is in the first team squad next season, hopefully a good few new players. Big Phil went on to say this. He said, he talked again about Cole McKinnon or Robbie Fraser. He says they don't need to play with Tavernier next to them. They have so many times in the dressing room together, so many times on the training pitch together, that they feel comfortable with them. So talking about, again, that they need to be involved with the first team. They need to feel comfortable with the first team, at home with the first team, part of that first team squad. And that seems to be something that Big Phil is certainly developing and wanting to develop going forward into next season. So certainly exciting times on how he plans to include the young players. Maybe this season he was kind of trying to just manage through to the end of the season with what he's got, and then obviously start to introduce youth and new players over the summer. He went on to say the other guys, they know the qualities of the youngsters. We are going to have to continue with that. It's a major part. We said this club comes out of a financial difficult situation, and it is a good situation to have 6 players out of contract. Sorry, not a good situation to have 6 players out of contract. So they don't have any value to sell on. And then you need to make a decision if they stay or not. So we, again, echoing this decision that we don't want players out of contract. We don't want players, who are not bringing any money into the club. We need players who are going to generate income. And I think this is where he sees some of these young players developing. Big Phil then went on again to talk about this trading model, really, bringing this trading model and bringing this development of youngsters through and wanting to get those players, involved with the first team. He said the club needs for the future to get also money in by producing or making players better, getting young players in and to make them better to sell them. And also, for sure, out of the academy, making players who can be starters in the first team. That needs to be the model that we will build the next couple of years. It's not the work of 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 months, or even 1 year or 2 years. So again, he's talking in a long-term strategy that we want to have a long-term strategy. We want to have a production line which churns out young players, that puts young players into the reckoning for the first team, that gives young players a pathway to the first team and sees whoever the manager is, hopefully him, because if he's still here, it means he's been successful, putting into place first team players who are youth products, who are academy products. And that's certainly something I want to see Rangers doing. As I've said on multiple videos, there's something special about seeing a player who's come through our academy, a Rangers man like McCausland, like McKinnon, succeeding and playing first team football. He went on to say this: it's an important thing. It was important we gave chances to Ross, the symbol of the academy, and out of that, Cole, Robbie, John Lee, and the others. They feel it also possible, and it gives belief. That is what they are showing. Does it mean they are ready to start every game and play every game? Not yet, but I hope they're going to challenge all the others. For me, it's not important how old somebody is. Now, a bit to pick out of that, again, the fact that, yes, he did give Cole, Robbie, and John Lee the opportunity in the first team squad for the Dundee game. And he's right. I don't think any of us are saying that these 17, 18, 19-year-old lads should be starting every single game for Rangers. That's not what we're saying at all. I don't think that would be good for the club or good for the young players, but it is good that he clearly sees them as having a part to play, having a responsibility, having a way to grow, and feeling they have a way to grow, so they then can become a challenge, they then can play up, they can improve, and they can push the standards into the first team. If behind you there is a promising young player up and coming who wants your shirt, you're going to raise your game as well, and that's what we want to see from our club. And that last line, again, something he said in the past, and something I've always said: if you're good enough, you're old enough. I don't care if you're 17, 18, 19. If you're that age and you can do it, you go out there and you do it. And that's what I want to see from Rangers. So certainly interesting times, but very interesting, though, that, that Phil Clement sees Cole McKinnon as a possible right back. Like I said, could we already have James Tavernier's replacement at the club? Interesting, last night on a poll we ran on the channel, over 60% of you say that Tavernier should not still be at Rangers next season. Very interesting indeed. Well, guys, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation. As always, it has been a pleasure speaking to my Rangers family. Please obviously hit that sub, help the channel to keep on growing. And as I always say on the way out, 2 things. 1, smash the like, beat the algorithm. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.